Kasi mo share screen.
Sa ato, ako lang.
Ikaw, Faith.
Yes.
Ano mo, bro? Ano sa laban ako sa 11.
Good siya, basta maka-report lang ka.
So good na.
Hindi mo ko nakashare, nakakuan ako tita.
Pwede ko pakuan, Shin. Pa-share screen. Like, ang host na yun. Friendly.
Naka-share screen na ka?
Yeah, wait.
Start na na?
Si Crystal man siguro to na.
Si Erika, Faith.
Sige.
Start na?
Start na day.
So, good morning, everyone. So, our topic for today, we are the group 5, and our topic for today is the news of history. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, this is our thesis. Walcott calls history the Medusa of the New World. The rift between the old and new world was caused by what gave birth to the idea of old and new colonialism. Walcott introduces how patrician writers who swear by the old world, unlike us, are deaf to the great dead, are as much out of the past as those revolutionaries who want to break away from it. The patricians reject the idea of historical time for the idea of myth, which is the partial recall of days. Next slide, please. So the patricians who forward such a view of history know that the revolutionaries, by rebelling against tradition, betray a filial impulse and contribute despite the perpetuations of the old and new. So in India, this point is completely lost in the conservative understanding of revolutionary politics, where the accusation is that revolutionaries have no respect for the past. So let's report.
So the argument made with exceptional subtlety by Walcott is that the past is fed as an idea by both conservative aristocrats and the revolutionary as different versions of simultaneity. Colonialism, in its most lasting capacity, produces an attitude to a system of knowledge that has not been able to deal with this artificial break in historical time. Next slide, please. So it appears that the past numerous transgressions have polluted the new world perpetually, preventing the free foundation of culture and tradition. While a number of individuals might opt to do so without spending time reviewing much of the present's contextual history, the majority of us are constrained by the events now taking place. By recalling these colonial events, it is depreciating the new world. Walcott also offers the question of historical memory. Walcott feels that classicists understood the danger of understanding history through memory. If history is Medusa, memory is a tricky muse rather, and it isn't a good idea for victims of history to trust either. Next slide, next reporter.
So, historical truth is a fictional project in service of a mercurial muse daw. So, like, mag-base gani into what has been viewed or, like, interpreted, which somehow kanang creates different perspectives sa natong mga readers. So, and modern writers and poets, according to Walcott, erred in producing a literature of recrimination, despair, and revenge when written by descendants of slaves, or a literature of remorse if it's written by descendants of masters. So by referring to a mercurial muse, it suggests that these writers are influenced by an unpredictable and ever-changing source of inspiration, possibly representing the complexities and nuances of historical events in their interpretations. So this perspective aligns with the idea that history is not a static entity, but rather subject to multiple interpretations and reinterpretations. So post-colonial and modern writers and poets often bring their own perspective, experiences, and biases into their works, challenging dominant historical narratives and offering alternative perspectives.
So, good morning, everyone. Actually, in Derek Walcott's The Muse of History, he actually compare and contrast two differing responses to the experience of colonization on the part of political activists, writers, and artists. So, duha ka view ang iyang gikuan. First is the classical view, as he terms it. Ironically, it is more open with to the new, while the radical view is obsessed daw sa past. So the classical view sees the possibilities of mixture and hybridity that the new world offers. And this doesn't mean that the classical view loses sight of the problems of the past or present, but it nonetheless um, looks to change that absorb previous oppressions. While the radical view in Walcott's formulation is obsessively concerned with what happened now and the damage that oppression caused. Yeah. As a result, it is unable to adapt and derives its power from an anger over the tragic victimization the oppressed underwent. So, um, here's the kuan, gansa niya pag compare or contrast. So for the classical view, ang history daw as a myth. History is current with us. It surrounds us and yet can be reimagined for our benefit. While sa radical view, history is tragedy daw, as tragedy. History is the record of our mistakes. We are but a disappointed fragment of past greatness. Uy, balik sa. Okay, thank you. So, next is kanang sa classical view, the new world is new and it is a complex reconfiguration, meaning kanang na-rearrange daw na. Then sa radical view kay the new world is old. It is a product of the past oppressions and horrors. Next is kanang Adamic view of humanity, or the Caribbean society can be reborn with wonder, while the radical view, recrimination or despair. Caribbean society is trapped because of what has happened. Next is we have the renewal and revision, while the radical view is polemic and pathos. So language as capable of synthesis, where the speech of the Caribbean can adapt the best of all its influences, while the radical view, language as enslavement daw. The colonizer's speech keeps the colonized from speaking authentically. Next is recognizes and has a horror of the colonial past. And same sa radical view. Next, please. Next slide. So, for the literary tradition reconfigured. The literary tradition is something that forms as part of us, yet it is renewable and adaptable. While the radical view, literary tradition as stasis, the tradition is something to be recovered. While history is annihilated or absorbed in classical view, in radical view, history is revenge. No innocence to return to in classical view, while innocence lost sa radical view. Next is both bitter and sweet, while sa radical view is only cynicism daw. Next is rejects progress as a myth, while radical view despairs at the past and all at the possibilities while yearning for the lost ruins. For the civilizations, in classical view, civilizations are spiritual. They are made up of ever renewable ideas. Civilizations are architectural, where they are focused on decaying ruins of. While in radical views, civilizations are architectural, where they are focused on the decaying ruins of colonialism. While in classical view is seeks the future, in radical view it caught in the past. Lastly, in classical view though it assimilates old faiths in new ways, while the radical view fears faith or chooses political humanism. So I guess that's all.
Prepare next chart.
Wait, pwede nimo kuan ako ang host.
Okay na, Shane.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Let's proceed to another topic. So we are the group 6. We are Jevi Yan Sadio, Tatay Eve Gerald, Valdez, Shaina Sheen, and Villa Carlos Eliza Claire. So we're going to tackle about the ecological imperialism. So we all know that imperialism is a broader term that refers to the expansionist policies of powerful nations seeking to extend their influence and control over others. But today we're going to tackle about the ecological imperialism that's focused on the economy of a specific country. So next. So we have here Alfred Worcester Crosby's ecological imperialism. So he was an American historian author known for his work in environmental history and the impact of European colonization on global ecosystems. His book, Ecological Imperialism, which we're going to discuss today, The Biological Expansion of Europe, was published in 1986 and is considered one of his most influential works. So, ecological imperialism is an explanatory concept that points out the contribution of European biological species such as animals, plants, pathogens, mga microorganisms that causes or can cause diseases such as viruses, bacteria, and many more. And ecological imperialism, the expansion in 1986. So it has been widely praised for its interdisciplinary approach combining history, ecology, and biology to provide insights into the long-term consequences of European expansion. Next.
So today, before we delve into this topic, I will give an insight first of what is ecological imperialism. So, ecological imperialism is concerned of the deliberate act of expanding power, control, and authority by one country over areas located outside its borders. So, Alfred W. Crosby's concept of ecological imperialism examines the profound implications of European expansion and colonization for global ecosystems. This notion explores the intricate relationship between human societies and the natural environment, revealing the pivotal role played by European powers in shaping the ecological landscape of our planet. So European imperialism had a lasting and profound influence on global ecosystems through extensive ecological changes resulting from European expansion and colonization. So, ang among statement sa among summarization kay ang European imperialism had a lasting and a profound influence on global ecosystem through extensive ecological changes resulting from European expansion and colonization. So according ni Crosby, nga kaning iyahang kanang concept of ecological imperialism kay it proposes that colonization was not only a form of cultural and political tyranny, but it was also a form of environmental terrorism. So, Europeans, a distinctive division of Caucasians, are characterized by their political and technological advancement rather than their physical attributes. Over the centuries, they have expanded their presence in regions by gradually occupying contiguous areas. Additionally, Europeans from the majority in what refer to as the Neo-Europes, distant lands located thousands of kilometers apart from Europe. So, kaning Neo-Europe, it is just another term for a European colony outside of Europe. So, the Neo-Europes played a significant role in global food trade, not solely due to their high productivity. These regions led in food production relative to local consumption, resulting in surplus quantities available for export. Like for instance, the United States accounted for 1/5 of global rice export in 1982, despite a small percentage of those rice. So, ang Neo-Europe kay dahil siya dominant position in global food trade and it goes beyond their productivity. So kaning Neo-Europe, they excel in producing food that exceeds local consumptions. So the process of European migration to this land was a gradual one. So bago ni migrate ang mga Europeans sa Neo-Europes, naadjud naadjud sila reason nganong ni migrate sila. Anang ilahang pag-migrate kay they were like really hesitant to leave their homeland, and it took considerable amount of time for the population of the new Europe to become predominantly. So i-discuss ni Eve ang mga push factors nganong ang mga Europeans ni migrate sa mga Neo-Europes.
Okay, so naa diri sa iyang essay nga na deluge nga naabot kanang flood. So between 1820 and 1930, over 15 million kuno ka Europeans migrated to the Neo-European lands overseas. So that number amount approximately 1/5 of the entire population of Europe. Pangutanaw, why such an enormous movement of people across such vast distances? So first na dire conditions in Europe provided a considerable, number one, push population explosion or population growth. So Neo-Europeans experienced significant population growth during this period. Nagresult ni siya sa increase of population, competition for resources, and limited opportunities for livelihood in their countries. So this pushed many individuals and families to seek new lands. Sunod, naatay limited cultivable land or the shortage of the land. So the availability of the land was limited in Europe due to the factors such as dense population and established agricultural practices. So this meant that individuals and families had limited opportunities for agricultural expansion or acquiring their own land. So they seek new territories with abundant land or fertile land became an attractive option for these people. Sunod, the national rivalries. So competition ni siya among European powers played a significant role in driving overseas colonization. So naay European nations were engaged in intense rivalries, seeking to expand their territories, ilang mga resources, and trade networks. So that exploration and colonization of the new lands allowed this nation to assert their dominance and strengthen their positions in the global power balance. Sunod, the persecution of minorities. So diri mga religious, political, and social persecution of minority groups was prevalent in Europe during this period. So many individuals and communities face discrimination, persecution, or limited opportunities sa akong giingon palang paganiha. Additionally, diri favorable geographical conditions including climate and sustainability for familiar crops and livestock attracted Europeans to these new territories. So kung mayroong biogeographical conditions kay mo siya mga new territories were often suitable for European crops and livestock. The climate of these regions resembled those of Europe, making it easier for European settlers to adapt and cultivate familiar crops and raise familiar livestock. The availability of resources, including fertile land, minerals, and other valuable commodities. So, muna siya ang mga reasons for yanong nag-scatter ang mga Neo-Europeans. Next.
A substantial number of individuals globally depend on the new groups as their primary source of food, a reliance anticipated to grow alongside population expansion. Nevertheless, this dependence on geographically distant regions for sustenance exposed them to a range of risks, including adverse weather conditions, pest infestations, disease outbreaks, economic volatility, and conflicts.
The new
So the New Europes, despite their geographical distance from Europe, share similar climates and have become home to European species and populations due to favorable ecological conditions and relatively limited competition. This phenomenon raises questions about the biological and ecological factors that contributes to the success of European imperialism. Next reporter, please.
The neo-Europeans are confronted with the formidable task of effectively managing these risks while concurrently upholding ecological balance and diplomatic relations. Consequently, the historical occurrence of European imperialism, marked by expansion and colonization, has engendered enduring and profound repercussions on global ecosystems, as evidenced by the extensive ecological alterations. So dere ang European imperialism and colonization kay dako jud kay siya effect sa global ecosystem. Tungod ni siya sa pag-abuso sa natural resources gani. Nya sa kani siya nga actions kay these actions can have a long-term environmental consequences such as deforestation, soil erosion, and loss of biodiversity. So the challenges faced by the neo-Europeans in managing ecological risk and maintaining diplomatic relations are rooted in the historical legacy of European imperialism and colonization. That's all. Thank you.